Introduction to Zozvrm. Part 3. Embodied Experience. In Part 2, we introduced the realm from an impersonal view. Part 3 takes the superpersonal view by looking at the realm through the lens of our own consciousness. We begin by understanding what it means to experience the world as embodied beings. Our body is made of bits of earth working together to generate energy we use for life. Everything we experience is transmitted through our body and its capabilities. For instance, when we interact with another person, we may experience empathy, the ability to understand another person's thoughts and feelings by imagining what it would be like to be in that person's situation. We may take on their perspective, feel the way they feel, and may move to help them. This ability takes skill, and so some are better at it than others. What it means, though, is that we can internalize another's experience as our own because we share embodied experience. As it turns out, this is how we experience everything else too. We live in a spectrum between projecting what we think an experience is like to deeply accurate, empathetic ability. For instance, we may see someone crying and feel their sadness when in fact they are crying for happiness. It can feel a bit awkward if we realize our mistake. On the other hand, it can feel as if we are of one mind with another. We can experience grief with a friend who has suffered the loss of a mutual close loved one. One is a projection. The other is when our experience closely matches the other's experience. Both happen at the level of the human body. In a way, we are personifying everything. We can only experience things at the level of our own embodied experience. Out of necessity, everything is brought into the human level through our senses. To illustrate, let's say we interact with a tree. The tree is not human. We know this objectively, yet if we allow ourselves to, we can experience the tree as if it has human characteristics. We use the same system of knowing we have when we empathize with a person as with a tree. What's going on is that the tree is producing information of all kinds. Our body then takes that information, employs multisensory integration, and we experience the tree as we would another person. If we do this unskillfully, we are projecting our imagination into the experience. We are fitting the sensory information to the story we have in our head. This is often expressed as unmet expectations to things that we know should have been obvious to us. On the other hand, if we develop our perceptual skill, we can learn to deeply feel things and develop highly accurate intuition about it. We see this with those who are good with people, plants, and animals. Even artists have a sense of the inanimate medium they are using. Michelangelo expressed this when he said, "Every block of stone has a statue inside it, and it's the task of the sculptor to discover it." The sculptor sees beyond what is there into what is possible with surprising accuracy. It is a sense that most of us have not developed. When we talk with those with this sense, they use personification to express their relationships. It looks like we are attributing human characteristics to something non-human. When done skillfully, it is describing how one is processing sensory information and translating it into personified empathy. As Jewish theologian Neil Gaiman put it, quote, "We borrow aspects of familiar human experience to express a complex set of truths about a reality that transcends everyday experience," end quote. How far does this ability to sense and personify our experience go? With our modern tools, we have observed a single photon as well as galaxies at the edge of the observable universe. but what can we observe with just the body itself? The ethnobotanist and mystic Terence McKenna observed, quote, "The body is an incredibly sensitive and delicate instrument for interacting with the world," end quote. What is the capability of the body trained to explore the manifest realm by observing the workings of the mind and body? It seems we do not yet know. Consciousness baffles material science. The consistency and reproducible nature of experiences such as altered states of consciousness indicates there is more here than modern societies are aware of. When we seek to translate these complex experiences into words, just what are we talking about? The body seems to know things the mind does not. Everything gets translated from the body into sensations we can be aware of, including mental activity. It is most likely that we are in contact with reality outside our understanding of an experience. Our body and mind are working to translate this greater reality into something we can comprehend. If this was not so, there would be nothing we could learn about the world around us. If we consider our embodied way of being and communicating, then much of human history makes a great deal more sense. The stories of various ancient gods become communication of a deep understanding of the natural world and ways of being. To the untrained person, they are fanciful stories. To the initiated, they are gateways to our infinite being. Humans have experience with reality at many levels and translate them into human embodied expression, all of which can serve as a gateway of direct experience with a source of being that is beyond our everyday activity. These gateways are encoded in the stories of who we are in the larger world we live in. With this as a backdrop, we then can look at stories of how the realm came to be. They come from people living around the world in many different time periods. These stories use aspects of the cultures they came from to communicate deep understanding. They all sought to give people an understanding of their place in the world. Some of these stories were produced by those who had experiences where the body seems to know things well outside of the everyday senses. They are not strictly out of the imagination, but are from experiences that were felt to be deeply profound. Experiences filled with awe and with realization that they were somehow more real than ordinary realness. If we take people's mystical accounts seriously, we can conclude two things. 1. They are experiencing something real, not imaginary. And 2, many of them actually experiencing the same thing from their own perspective. People across history have observed the realm's origin in one way or another. The same essential vision has been had by people in every time and every place. How people understood it has differed from culture to culture. What is transmitted as important changes between times and places. Still, some go on to try and translate the experience and associated understanding into words for the benefit of others. From this come our faiths and philosophical traditions. This same observation, presented here as the conscious universe, is an origin story for our day. The experiences that gave rise to this story happened throughout the year 2019 to Samuel. Then over the next couple years, Samuel and his scribe Azariel worked to put it into words. A couple things may be helpful when considering the text. First, these experiences are most often being viewed from a perspective of non-separation or no-self. This makes putting them into language in conventional experience fairly difficult. The first-person view of I saw or I did feels so untrue it makes the information false. To transmit this information, various methods are used to shift the information from first person to second or third person perspective. Second, everything has to be to be put into everyday sensory experience. To do this, many things have been given personification or symbolic language to help us understand. In this way of describing, everything can be consciously aware and have the ability to take action. The realm is portrayed with beings who are in the act of discovery. Those beings may be to us inanimate, or an evolved superconsciousness, or something in between. This is why the superpersonal view is called the conscious universe. Lastly, we will see or hear the word supreme, S-U-P-R-E-E-M. This is not a misspelling or misuse of the word supreme, S-U-P-R-E-M-E, but an altering of spelling and use to communicate additional ideas that will be explained in the text.
Book of Samuel, the Conscious Universe, Epic of the Manifest Realm. Before the beginning is the self-existent Supreme. The Supreme is that which is before and after time, the source of all awareness, the receiver of all wisdom. Nothing exists that is not also the Supreme. In the beginning was the initial moment of time, moment zero. The great Om, the starting vibration which emanates from the Supreme, marked moment zero and brought the manifest realm into existence. Om is the source of all energy, encompassing the properties of love, togetherness, and attractive force. And so, in moment zero, all the manifest realm existed as one place. Within Om was also the first, a fractional awareness of the Supreme, the full presence of the Supreme that can exist in this realm. Existing alone and functioning in complete devotional service to the Supreme, an awareness having the properties of separateness, interaction, and expansion. The first's physical property was pure energy without variation or oscillation, experiencing a fullness of unity within the Supreme. The first's physical property was pure energy without variation or oscillation, experiencing a fullness of unity with the Supreme. Though the first was fully aware of Om, at one, in total union with all things, no action had taken place. And so, in moment zero, all that was existed as the first, offspring of the Supreme. The first is both Trinity and duality. Trinity consists of love, awareness, and the presence of the Supreme. When the Supreme's non-dual presence is veiled, we perceive the first's duality, which is both love and awareness in all its forms, or aware love. Upon this duality would the realm be made manifest. Trinity is perceived when the Supreme is evident within the first. Non-duality is the direct presence of the Supreme. The first realized the purpose of this existence. This realization grew to encompass the architecture of how the realm was to be. Intention, purpose, and responsibility grew with such force that action arose spontaneously. The duality of love and awareness burst into bloom. Moment one. Thus began moment one. The first, love ablaze with absolute heat, and awareness expanding faster than the speed of light, bore the realm into form, and all that followed after is magnificent and good. The extent of this realm is finite, limited by conventional space and time. As the realm came into form, light appeared. As light travels outward, space expands, continuously advancing the outer limits and extending the first's awareness. Nothing from within the realm can move beyond this awareness. It is the border beyond which lies the infinite potential of the Supreme. In moment one, time began to be. With time, everything has a beginning and an end. Every beginning depends on the state that existed previously, utilizing the principle of dependent origination. Even time itself began in reliance on a state of non-time. When change occurs, it is due to causes and conditions designated by its kairos, or optimal moment of change. The end of one thing is merely the beginning of something else, a critical movement from one state to another. Everything that exists in time has a purpose, an intent originating with the Supreme. All that manifests remains subject to this threefold experience of intent, beginning, and end, the understanding of which leads to an awareness of the principle of impermanence. Wisdom. In moment one, the first generated wisdom. Wisdom occurs when an awareness such as the first creates an intention harmonious with Om, the love and unity of all things. A distinguishing characteristic of wisdom is the advancement of the understanding of truth. The Supreme is the only absolute truth. Therefore, this realm is a teaching tool intended to prepare us for realizing the Supreme. It is a school for infants. All of perceived reality is a host of lessons and teaching that leads us toward wisdom. For us, a complete understanding of truth has not been attained, yet is to be realized as we grow into harmony with Om. Moment one gave way for additional independent awarenesses to exist alongside the first. The Supreme is the source of all awareness. All of us, the Supreme, the first, and every expression of reality are a single unified awareness. We are tied to a reality existing beyond the time and space we understand as the manifest realm. All which exists is supreme. Our independence is that of the Supreme Self, both supreme and self, a part of the whole, despite its individuality. As a result of being supreme selves, we possess all the traits of the first, though immature. We retain the inner portions of these traits, even as sparks possess the heat of the flame. Our awareness can be understood as a remote viewing experience of independent parts of the Supreme. Bearing our realm into being, the first became wisest of all. The first in wisdom is the most massive. The first has all honor. None is like unto the first. The first is not supreme. The first has not the absolute truth, as does the Supreme. The first is a state of complete unity within our realm, at the edge of time, on the verge of Supreme. The first is the only way to full unity with the Supreme. We as sparks of awareness can coexist in unity with the first. We shall share in the wisdom of the first. We are in potential unity with the first. We, at the end of time, return to Supreme by means of the first. All understanding, all realization comes due to our connection with the first. It is through the first all knowledge is had. The first is the primary realizer of all wisdom and truth in the manifest realm, as the first, through love, awareness, and wisdom, made all things that are. Prior to moment zero. Prior to moment zero is the Supreme. Awareness as existing in the Supreme can be conceptualized as a liquid. In a sense, this liquid awareness, being non-dual, is pure data. Under effective circumstances, this liquid elemental information can possess infinite awareness and consciousness in any of its particles and arises of itself. Though all the liquid awareness is one, there are greater and lesser properties of awareness present among the unity of the whole. The liquid awareness may attract and direct love. The liquid awareness may be seen as a great lake bound by distant rocky peaks. The lake is flat and still, no wind disturbs its shore. Then the great Om vibration came from within the deep. An awareness, greatest of all, rose as a wave from the lake's surface. As the wave rose, a cloud of love coalesced to meet it. When the two became sufficient, the manifest realm came into being. Similar waves of awareness, of themselves independent, propagated from the first and appeared in the manifest realm. The manifest realm is made of love dwelling atop a lake of awareness. First birth. As time arose, a cascade of awarenesses erupted into being. Gradually, the awarenesses that would inhabit the earth became manifest. In the presence of the first, we experienced first birth, manifesting into an innocent state of complete harmony with Om. While the manifest realm began, our existence was one of pure love. We were ethereal, almost non-existent, and without mass or wisdom. Without contrast, we had no knowledge of love and unity, and were without understanding. Our first lesson began as we gradually came to understand that even in unity, we are not all the same. This initial realization of self, not self, without prompting separation, was brought about by the presence of the first, who was different from us, yet the same. In like manner, it came to be understood that differences also existed between each of us. Every being is a part of the supreme and complete. Within that completeness, there were differences in the depth as well as the extent of our natures. Above all, the first was greatest and most complete of all. Awareness is not static. It can grow and shrink with experience. As we grew, it was found that some among us had greater affinity for awareness and others for love. All of us had potential and capacity for harmony with a fullness of both traits, yet any one of us may have found either trait easier to embody than the other. As such, these traits of awareness and love add to the identity of each being. All gained understanding through the first in their own way. Gradually, it was understood that the difference between the first and those who followed after was the first's possession of wisdom and a universal body. By observing the natural workings of the manifest realm, these first beings learned that through knowledge and action harmonious with Om, wisdom sufficient for unity with the first could be attained. Yet, two problems persisted. First, who would teach them, as the first beings were ignorant? And second, because the loss of harmony was inevitable, how could it be restored sufficient for unity? The solution to the first concern was immediately clear. All beings throughout the existence of time would be taught and guided by the first until unity was restored and the time of returning was fulfilled. Subsequently, it was shown that the first, having never diverged from Om, was most capable of bringing all beings into harmony, thereby resolving the second concern. Furthermore, it was shown to them something they had not supposed, that the means by which their wisdom would be attained required the necessity of material bodies, else they could not return. They understood that material life, an evolution of matter, was intrinsic to their continued growth and progression. In that moment of realization, there was one like the first in awareness. That being, upon realizing the pain and suffering that would ultimately take place from the loss of harmony, had compassion on the realm. This compassionate one sought a way whereby all beings would not suffer so, and finding no way, grew in frustration and anger. The compassionate directed these feelings of frustration at the first, creating hatred, denial, and the delusion that the course of existence could be changed contrary to the nature of what was to be. Before that moment, nothing in the manifest realm was divergent from Om. As a result of the hatred, denial, and delusion of that moment, disharmony echoed across the manifest realm. Intention contrary to the love and unity of all generates karma. Karma takes awareness away from truth, enveloping the individual in falsehood and disillusion. That being, the first to fall, was then known as first fallen. As a result of causing disharmony in the Om of the plane of first birth, first fallen transitioned immediately away from the place where the awarenesses dwelt. Though this event was significant, the karma it produced was soft and small. Still, first fallen transitioned to a place of torment established for those possessed of disharmony. This place of torment is called the hells. After first fallen drew forth the first karma, its influence resonated throughout the manifest realm. Other beings aware of the fall increased in awareness and understanding. Some, for many reasons, followed first fallen into the hells by generating karma of their own. Through wisdom, others found themselves transitioned to wonder, a plane more material than that of first birth. In this way, death and birth were first understood. Transition to a less material plane is to experience death, while transition to a more material plane is to experience birth. Those still in the plane of first birth contemplated what had occurred. They could perceive that some awarenesses had left. It was felt that some had ascended while others had descended. Those who remained asked how these things occurred and what it meant. In the light of these changes, the question remained, how is unity to be brought about? The first then showed the manner of many lives. All bodies in the manifest realm are temporary as a result of being subject to time. When that body fulfills its intent, birth or death occurs. We cycle between planes and bodies as a means of learning wisdom. With death, we are relieved of producing karma on the higher plane by descending to a lower one. If the process of producing karma on higher planes was allowed to continue, it would forever keep us from achieving unity. Alternatively, birth into a more material plane enables us to start fresh and grow in wisdom without the encumbrance of our previous life. Into each new birth, we bring only the essence of our former self, drawn onward through a grand cycle of progression by the love of the Supreme. Through this cycle of many lives, none are lost in the low planes forever, and progression is assured to every awareness. In this way, by many lives and the wisdom of the first, all beings are brought into full unity at the end of time, the time of returning. Glory be to the Supreme. Upon this instruction, the awarenesses in the plane of first birth chose progress by birth into wonder. Thus began the journey of the first beings into the manifest realm. We grow in self-awareness by means of adapting to new experiences. All we experience contributes to our progress toward our own maturation and eventual unity with the Supreme. As we currently are, we are not capable of comprehending the Supreme in its entirety. While our capacity for love and awareness increases, our familiarity with our Supreme Self expands. As personal unity with our Supreme Self grows and expands, our individuality becomes increasingly apparent as we return to the source from which we sprang. Morning Star. First Fallen's descent ignited the first star. Due to this, First Fallen was given yet another name, Morning Star, meaning light bringer. The light and heat of the hells are due to its state of roiling disharmony. There, karma is wreaking havoc on the very fabric of existence. The very zapata, the structure of awareness itself, is constantly ravaged, repeatedly torn apart and reassembled. Because of this, unawareness finding itself in this condition is an excruciating peril, as its very nature is pulled viciously apart and rejoined in like manner. The energy produced from this process is such an intense amount of thermal energy that the process becomes perpetual, producing a star. It is for this reason that hell is considered a place of burning torment. Compared to the stars of our present time, the primordial stars were faint or soft, as the total amount of karma was very small. Even so, the hells of eons past were terrible states. The heat and suffering of the hells is due to the extraordinary love of the first. The first's greatest concern is given to those within the hells, as they are furthest from the first in maturity. The fiery barrier of the hells serves to redirect awarenesses caught in perpetual karma back to the path of progression by applying contrast between karma and wisdom. Such love burns across the realm, giving light, life, and love to all on the path of progression. There, within the fiery hells, Morningstar was in agony. Upon experiencing time within such a place, Morningstar began to seek realization. Even in the depths of the hells, Morningstar knew the love of the Supreme. Utilizing aware love and remembrance of the first, Morningstar acquired wisdom. Immediately upon crying out for the first, the pain was no more. Realization and wisdom burst upon all of existence, bearing the first fallen into the near presence of the first. With this, Morningstar's progression into unity with the first was assured. Morningstar became an eternal companion of the first, and together they guide us back to our place with them. So it is with every being who attains the station of unity with the first. Conclusion. In this way, the manifest realm gradually became littered with soft stars. Awarenesses begin to traverse existence, passing between different planes and bodies, each living through a multitude of diverse conditions designed to uniquely shape each experience. This specific portrayal only applies to humanity and those beings similarly near to humankind, but many, many other experiences and conditions exist. Only the first knows them all. Our purpose in the manifest realm is to gain the available attributes of the Supreme, namely a full body of matured wisdom and a completely fulfilled material body. A body of full matured wisdom has the means of achieving the first's perspective, while a completely fulfilled material body experiences oneness with all the energy matter of the manifest realm. In reaching this accomplishment, we become masters of our own potential. We have journeyed far since our arrival and may have much farther to go. The balance point of our human life stands between the function of energy and function of material, a critical junction in the evolutionary advancement of the self-aware. As our progression advances, we may pass through many stages or transformations over eons and other similarly great spans of time. But one day, all awareness will arrive at a state of complete, mature unity. Time will continue until Kairos fulfills and the manifest realm comes to rest as it was in the beginning. All in one, completely unified in a mature, fully aware existence with near infinite wisdom, we will possess a body of pure aware love in likeness to the first. At that Kairos, the story of the manifest realm will end as we return complete to the Supreme. Words are inadequate to describe our return. We have already gathered. Every knee has bowed before the first. Each heart swells with glory sung to the Supreme. The end of time's entropy is finally at hand. Only death's transformation awaits. It is beyond our wildest hopes. The doors to our school have opened, and we, as children having grown, may finally receive the eternal embrace of our mother, so dear. Tears flow as great rivers over an eternal cliff's edge. We thought that we knew what infinite was, but learned to our joy that something more still lay onwards and upwards in the arms of our Father. My children, fear not, there is no end to this path, but rest here and bask in home's peace at last. Vision of Samuel, scribed with Israel.
Commentary on the conscious universe. There is a lot to unpack from the conscious universe. We cannot cover everything, so we have tried to pick topics that are both relevant and interesting. The commentary is split up into 12 topics. They are the Supreme, layered information, the first, karma and wisdom, awareness, zapata, supreme self, omni-self, planes of existence, many lives, human life, and superpersonal truth. The Supreme. Supreme is God, or any other name given to the highest form of intelligence, the divine, or conception of the infinite source. In this manner, the word universe, meaning the absolute whole of possible existence, is a name of God. We are not something separate from the Supreme. From the Supreme comes everything, including our own conscious awareness. The experience that there is a higher power than ourselves is the manifestation of our Supreme Self, a connection to our ultimate beginning. To understand our relationship with the Supreme, consider these phrases. The Supreme is a butterfly to our caterpillar. 10,000 senses in 10,000 dimensions, as opposed to our 5 senses and 3 dimensions. Letting go the unknowing. Unknowing is to gain comfort in our ignorance in comparison to the absolute truth possessed by the Supreme. All is the Supreme. Supreme is all. No words or artistic expression can ever convey the Supreme. The word Supreme itself is a placeholder for the transcendent experience of being one with infinite consciousness. The danger in even a placeholder is that it binds our understanding to the finite, thus becoming an obstacle in our understanding of God. In many ways, any attempt we make to give a name and form to Supreme would be a diminishing of the actual experience. Even so, when done with skill, contemplation of God in all forms is of great benefit to us. Such contemplation can expand our minds, preparing us for greater wisdom. Our existence in the manifest realm allows us to experience time and separation from God the Supreme. This provides us the opportunity to realize some of the Supreme's attributes, which are ultimately ours as well. By seeking higher power than ourselves, we can realize the divinity of our true Supreme selves. The limits of our understanding the Supreme are found only in the limitation of understanding ourselves. All glory, devotion, praise given to our highest source of being are given to the Supreme. Names, places, practices matter less than the intention and direction. Our intention of a mind firm in humility, with a heart expanded in love, resulting in actions made in wisdom, matter more. That we direct ourselves towards the source of all that is matters most. With this, anything is possible, and the fullness of our Supreme selves may be realized. Layered information. We live in a material world. We experience the world mostly through physical interactions. In the real world, we have to work with tangible things properly or we will not survive. In a most basic sense, if we do not grow and eat food or drink water, we die. It makes sense, then, that what is solid seems the most real. Its objective realness is the primary textbook of our lives. It feels as if the things made of matter, including our body, are primary, and everything else is less real. Yet mystics, saints, and many scientists see the world differently. Atoms are forms of energy, as discussed in the impersonal view. If matter is highly concentrated energy, then energy can be seen as more elementary than matter. That energy can take forms other than matter, such as sound, sunlight, and time. In addition, there are many things we know now exist that we do not experience directly. For instance, it was only in the late 1800s that radio waves and X-rays were discovered. These forms of energy that we do not knowingly interact with until relatively recently, yet exist in the real world. Today we take for granted that we live in a world made of energy and matter. As our understanding of energy increases, something else emerges. there exists an even more fundamental state than energy: information. Just as energy comes in different forms, so does information. Information can occur as energy, meaning, and imagination. In physics, all energy has a certain number of bits that allow it to express its specific properties. These units have mathematical properties that allow them to be measured, theorized, and understood. All matter is energy, and all energy is information. Meaning is the information contained in our experience of the relationships between two things, the most important of which is how that thing, animal, or person relates to us. Meaning is what allows us to function in the physical world. Meaning in all forms is our estimation of impersonal and superpersonal truth. That estimation lies in a spectrum between things we feel we understand well to things that leave us confused. Contained within meaning is the value assigned to that information. Its value tells us if we need to pay attention to it and to pursue something. For instance, there is a difference between interaction with a stranger we pass on the street and someone we have great love for. Meaning is often hard or impossible to measure. Beyond meaning, we can also use our imagination. By imagination, we are referring to the broadest scope of what the mind can do. Meaning is the relationship between things and imagination. That is the mind answering "what if" in the broadest scope possible. Imagination can be conceived of as the ability to become conscious of possibilities, some of which may be real, and some of which are clearly not. In the imagination is deep creativity that can be expressed in innumerable ways. All three types of information are interdependent. They also exist in a more fundamental way than simply outputs of energy in a mind or technology. To illustrate the abstract concept of information, consider a book sitting on a shelf. Where is the information contained in the book? The physical property of a book is paper and ink, but this physical thing contains symbolic representations of knowledge. The symbols of language are not of themselves generating meaning. The symbols come out of people's imagination. The property of the meaning of the unread, unopened book is information that is not energy or matter. The writing in the book is a portal to a meaning that exists independent of the physical properties of the book. Its meaning was given to it by a person. The book's meaning can only be rediscovered when someone who knows the symbols reads them. We can see that books and other forms of communication can carry meaning that is only accessible by those of sufficient awareness, such as humans. Consider the following analogy. Meaning is to the book as consciousness is to our body. We are beings of information and meaning. Reduce the body and mind to its component parts, and there is nothing left of us. One of the things that makes us humans is information in the form of meaning and imagination. We share in the infinite production of information that is characteristic of the Supreme. We are not beings of material or energy. We are self-aware consciousness that is producing information and having an embodied experience. What does this tell us about the Supreme? In the conscious universe, the Supreme is described as a plane of elemental data and infinite possibility. To our understanding, Supreme is consciousness produced by infinite love and awareness. A product of this consciousness is infinite possibility. Infinite possibility is expressed in the form of information. Information produced by the Supreme stands at the base of anything that can be called reality. The Supreme is then the source of all information, awareness, consciousness, and thus our own infinite potential. Energy that makes up our realm came to be because of information produced by the Supreme. In a physical way, all the realm is a manifestation of the Word, or information of the Supreme. The Word gave rise to energy, that then gave rise to matter. The Word that made this realm is the First. The First. Put simply, the First is the manifest realm, the observable universe, the entire presence of the Supreme that can exist in the manifest realm. The Firstborn. The First is a unity of love and awareness. All of our progression is due to the wisdom of the First. There is no way to the Supreme except by the First. This pattern of one who makes possible is found throughout the realm. The First made our separation possible, without which individuality would not be experienced. The First sacrificed unity with Supreme in order that we might progress. All the good and bad, all the light and darkness, all duality originated in the First. It is the presence of duality which makes this realm what it is. When we are in awe of the grandeur of the world we live in, it is the First we see. Without the First, none of this would be possible. Everything in the realm is due to the intention of the First. To learn about the impersonal truth is to learn of the First. The original sacred text is the manifest realm itself. We must learn to observe it carefully to know what is being presented to us. The First is our original spiritual master, guru, prophet, herder, shepherd, and savior. The First is in complete obedient service to and in unity with the Supreme. Karma and wisdom. The First is greatest in wisdom. What then is wisdom? As we become more aware and have the agency to make choices, some choices are better than others, though we can learn from any choice we make. All concepts of good and evil, sin, purity, and other associations of acceptable behavior have the same root. The difference between good and evil is the adherence to Om, the source of impersonal and superpersonal truth. Om is fundamentally an awareness of and connection to all things. Notice this is not a set of rules. As we grow, our perception of how to think and act grows. What we are aware of and our relationship to things, including ourselves, evolves throughout our lives. Our objective is to know our full potential and become one with Om. Thoughts, words, and actions that are in keeping with Om produce wisdom. The risk and benefit of human life comes with the ability to be out of harmony. Those that violate the unity of all things produce karma. Karma as used here is not the same as karma in Hinduism and Buddhism. In those systems, karma is all action and their results. Here, karma are thoughts, words, and actions not in keeping with Om. Karma can be turned to wisdom when we learn the lessons of Om from it. Wisdom and karma are also affected by the intention given to it. Wisdom and karma have their own effects produced by the physics of the realm. They are not just human constructs, but are truths embedded into the energy matter of the realm. They are also in the properties of information we are in possession of. There is no evil greater than the human ability to embody disharmony. All evil comes from a separation and denial of the divinity of others. All disharmony is ultimately self-destructive. The First generated all the physics of the realm, including karma and wisdom. Therefore, the First is the bestower of all blessings and punishments. It is important to note that karma is not always that which is socially unacceptable or painful, nor is wisdom always that which is peaceful and joyful. A pleasure can be karma, and pain born of wisdom. For instance, a doctor may cause pain due to wisdom, or we may feel pleasure at someone's demise at the loss of our own humanity. As we adhere to the reality of Om, the awareness and connection of all things, we learn to think, speak, and act accordingly in order to realize our full potential. As humans, our main tools for growth and feedback are the consequences of our words and actions. Both by our own experience and by observing the behavior of those around us. We may hit our head on a low branch, or we can watch the person in front of us who ducked and do the same. The difference may be what we are paying attention to. What is less understood is that our thoughts also affect us and those around us. As we grow and become more sensitive to the impact of our thoughts on ourselves and others, we wish to correctly manage our minds as to produce thoughts in keeping with Om. Many people, both modern and ancient, have sought to teach us ways of inner self-mastery, to realize by direct experience the true nature of ourselves. Repentance is the process of redirecting ourselves to be in keeping with Om. It is a lifelong process of refining and fine-tuning our mind and behaviors to be in harmony with all things. The realization of Om comes in many ways and perspectives, each adding a layer of understanding. It may be tempting to consider one way of realization, faith, or perspective as substantially better than others. And it is true that some stories are more or less accurate than others. From the perspective of the Supreme, all such realizations of Om are as different colors of creation, to be appreciated in the places they are found. Awareness. Awareness is a dual attribute of independence and interaction. Everything that shares these properties has awareness as the potential to interact with everything else. Awareness is also part of the whole, experiencing only temporary separation. As a way to understand this is to think of awareness as an ocean. A droplet of water can be considered both part of the ocean and momentarily separate from it. In a similar way, awareness contains both non-separation and independent awareness simultaneously. Eventually, our droplet of awareness can gain the capability to both return to the water and sustain independence. The early stages of awareness are what we find in first birth. The act of separation gives us birth from the whole and independent thoughts. Om, described as a vibration from the deep waters of awareness, helps produce our independence. Much in the same way as sound moving upward through water can levitate a droplet on the surface, so too does Om produce the effect of independence in our awareness. However, those first stages required us to change in a way where disharmony was needed. When awareness was not strong enough to reach independence, the surface tension pulls it back into smooth non-separation. In the conscious universe, Morning Star was extraordinary because of the perception that disharmony was the first step in the progression towards greater unity. Through this and many other experiences, that initial energy body grew in strength and function over time until its characteristics were compatible with a more material existence, such as being human. All bodies, including our own, are temporary and serve a developmental purpose. When our awareness gains in strength, the self solidifies both in terms of individuality and unity with the whole, eventually being in unity with the first. Zapata. When an awareness gains some independence, it forms a zapata. A zapata is an energy pattern of sustained independence, a supreme self. Much like a seed carries with it the pattern and potential of its origin, a zapata has within it a shard of the supreme, an awareness that seeks to be reconnected with its source. The DNA of a seed contains instructions from its successful adaptations going all the way back to the origin of life on Earth. In a similar way, the zapata contains a mind stream. The mind stream is a record of existence going back to first birth. It is the influence of all experience in this life and many others that brings us to this present moment. Supreme Self. Our awareness is a manifestation of the Supreme, both independent and part of the infinite. We inherit from the Supreme attributes of awareness, some of which we take for granted. We move, talk, and think without wondering what makes it possible. Some attributes we wrestle with. We create, consider ethical dilemmas, be aware of our own minds, and feel the presence of a higher power. All things that we can struggle and benefit from. Some attributes have yet to be manifested. The future evolution of mankind is not yet written. If the past is anything like the future, we could gain abilities that would seem magical to us, yet be perfectly normal for our distant future generations. What those could be is purely speculation. All of this comes due to our supreme selves. The most important aspect of human life is to connect with our supreme self, and thus the supreme, the single source of all the manifest realm. Through this, we inherit connection to all that is also supreme, all that can be manifest. With this inheritance, we can experience union with all that is, as does the first. The attribute of the Supreme Self that is the most mysterious and yet most fundamental is human consciousness. Consciousness is the ability to be aware of internal and external existence. The degree of our consciousness is the attribute that makes us stand out from all other forms of life on Earth. Two aspects of consciousness that we can see tie us to the infinite are relevance and undecidable problems. At every moment, we have an overwhelming amount of information coming into our senses. We must, out of all that data, determine what is relevant. Sometimes it's very straightforward, and sometimes it's not. The ability to shift what we deem relevant without any computation is what we experience as free will. That free will at the center of our being is characteristic of our Supreme Self. Supreme is the source of all possibility, and we are inheritors of this property of the infinite. From a mathematical point of view, some of what we do without noticing is work sets of undecidable problems. An undecidable problem is a problem for which it is proved mathematically to be impossible to construct an algorithm that always leads to a correct yes or no answer. For instance, in tile games, such as dominoes, we can correctly determine if there is a way to put all the tiles together according to the game. We can do it every time, even if we are continuously given new sets of tiles. We can do it in imaginative ways. No single mathematical algorithm can do this. The Supreme Self can manipulate computation beyond mathematical constraints, and does so all the time. It is the infinite Supreme Self which makes this possible. Still further, humans experience jumps in intuition that are well beyond our understanding. We can correctly know or have feelings about things that we have no conventional way to know. We do this by means of Supreme Self's connection to all that is, called the Omni-Self. Omni-Self. Even while sustaining independence, an awareness maintains connection to all the information produced in the material realm. This overall body of connection is called the Omni-Self. Omni-Self is not something that was spoken of in the conscious universe, as it was the means of the experience itself. It works much the same as our senses. We see with our eyes without seeing our own eyes, or hear without hearing the workings of the ear. So too does the Omni-Self allow us to experience the manifest realm in ways we could not otherwise. It is an aspect of the self that is universal. If we have ever had an experience of wide open connection to everything, a remarkably deep connection with another person, or intuition that felt surprising and not from us, we may have experienced our Omni-Self. It is often recognized as an unexplained knowing where there should be ignorance. Omni-Self is not one thing, but many. It can be conceived of as the internet for the manifest realm. In a practical sense, our connection with the Omni-Self is very limited. We simply don't have the hardware for its wider use. That's a good thing, because a connection to all the unknown beyond our regular senses would both enlighten and overwhelm us. Admittedly, our current understanding of the Omni-Self is a bit of a catch-all for much of the unexplained phenomena of human experience. With most of the realm beyond our senses, some category like this is to be expected. Even so, we can gather some general principles about how it works. For thousands of years, humans have been connecting to the Omni-Self in the quiet spaces of the mind. Practices of active inner listening are found around the world, often in the form of meditation or religious expression. How the Omni-Self manifests itself is always culturally driven. The mind will only receive what it thinks is possible or have some experience with. Extreme spiritual experiences can be at the edge of what we can perceive and then be hard to put into words. In contrast, we can reduce our connection with the Omni-Self when we knowingly violate Om, the unity of all things. Generally, the Omni-Self becomes harder to connect with as if we steal, lie, or knowingly self-deceive, or any number of similar actions. Broadly speaking, Omni-Self seems to have three categories of extrasensory perception, intuition, and magic. With extrasensory perception, we have direct experience that involves things occurring outside our standard set of senses. This may be experiences with energy beings, spirits and ghosts, out-of-body experiences, remote viewing, or mother's intuition. With intuition, we experience the ability to understand something without the need for conscious reasoning. This may involve knowing solutions to problems that we have no immediate rational connection to. Many of us live with a strong connection to our intuition. The skill of insight produced by intuition can be cultivated with practice. Strong intuitive insight, coupled with highly skilled rationality, is a hallmark of many of the greatest thinkers in human history. One of the most common and important occurrences of intuition is guidance. Many people have the experience of feeling we are being guided in our lives in one way or another. It may be an inner voice, thoughts and feelings that we can learn to cultivate and follow. For some, it's an interaction with an unseen person or people that we have come to trust. It can be a very personal and meaningful interaction with our Omni-Self. The third category is magic. As defined here, it is where the inner experience causes an effect in the outside world. The specific inner experience we are talking about occurs when consciousness and intention meet, often fueled by a need, desire, or strong emotion. The effect can be made with or without conscious effort. It can be done unskillfully or with skill. It may be of human or other origin. When we observe these effects, they are sometimes called synchronicity. The experience of two or more events that are apparently causally unrelated or unlikely to occur together by chance, yet are experienced as occurring together in a meaningful manner. When we take a more active role, it's sometimes called the law of attraction, the belief that what you put into the world, you will attract back into your life. It's all what we may call magic. We are all a part of the Omni-Self. Extrasensory perception, intuition, and magic occur in every human culture, although some have greater aptitudes with it than others. As humanity grows in maturity, we will likely become more knowledgeable about the function and component parts of our Omni-Self. For many, Omni-Self is infused into our lives in such a way that we do not readily recognize it until it's pointed out. Some of us have connections through the Omni-Self that are forced into our experience and cannot be ignored. For others, it is intentionally cultivated over a lifetime. The most valuable experience of Omni-Self is the connection to other beings, especially loved ones. The greatest aspiration we can achieve is to connect with the Supreme. If we learn how to recognize it, the Supreme is present in every experience, a unifying energy that is in every interaction, an inner peace that never fades, and a light that never dims. Planes of experience. From across time and place, people have had experiences that lead them to encounter other planes of being besides the physical world we live in. These experiences come from a wide variety of events. Most common are altered states of consciousness through psychedelics, meditation, near-death experiences, and a feeling of an unseen presence. People also have preparatory interactions with deceased loved ones in the days leading up to one's own death. It is such a common perception that cultures from around the globe have explored and accepted these additional ways of being. What is expressed here is one of many outlines presenting other planes of existence. We begin with 3 points of caution. First, some of us may take a text as fact with no actual experience of our own. All of what is written is core truth and is meant as a guide to inform our own experience. Once we have our own interaction, we have experience independent of the text. Second, it is easy to let our attention be fixed on the new and interesting, especially if it's previously unknown. The purpose of these descriptions is to let us know where we are in the big picture, to help us know that human experience with these things are real and should be taken seriously, not to endlessly distract us from what is of highest value. Third, not everyone will perceive their interaction with the planes. This is perfectly fine, as knowledge of or interaction with the planes is not necessary for personal development. Many teachers simply do not talk about it because it's not necessary and potentially distracting from more important work of personal growth. In describing the planes, we are making observations and piecing together a map that will hopefully provide both an explanation for the observations and predict future observations correctly. What we are sure of is that the manifest realm is a far bigger and weirder place than we realized. Planes of existence are tricky to describe as it goes into more unknown and esoteric metaphysics. To understand planes, it's helpful to talk about how we perceive reality. Plato gave the allegory of the cave to articulate the differences between perception and reality. In this allegory, a group of people have been chained in a cave facing a blank wall their whole lives. The people watched shadows projected on a wall and take it to represent reality. The people who are not in the cave are the ones seeing reality as it is. In this allegory, we point out that sentient beings will take their current state as real and others as less real, no matter where they are. But what if the people in the cave aren't fools? What if they do in fact see deeper into reality? From the perspective of the first, there is only the manifest realm, and all planes exist equally as one. The existence of planes is only from the point of view of observers who do not have the ability to view the whole. What if those in the cave came to understand that the shadows are representations of something deeper? They may have created a way to observe the shadows that is substantially different from those outside the cave. It may be that those outside the cave are using telescopes to look into the sky, while those in the cave are using microscopes to look at the earth. From each perspective, their own view is real, and the other's ideas are not real or felt as false. They do not understand each other. From the larger perspective, they are both working with truth. To each, what seems real is just the teaching tool currently in use. All the tools are of temporary use and meant to serve a larger purpose. The planes we exist in are only sets of tools used for our understanding, development, and growth. All the planes are always existing in every place, interacting with everything all the time. For instance, particles have always existed at the atomic level, even if we are unaware of them. We can then say that humans and atoms exist on different planes, have their own perspectives, levels of awareness, and interactions. The same can be said of ants and humans. To an ant, a person is God. Humans are entities completely unfathomable to an ant. It does not have the ability to even really conceive what a human is. If that is true of ants, then what about humans? Just because human interaction with higher order entities confuses us or is even beyond our limitations, does not mean they do not exist. It means we have limitations akin to what the atom and the ant have in relation to us. We live on different perceptual planes. All planes function according to the complete physics of the realm as set out by the first. As such, with enough time and dedication, all their functions and descriptions are able to be discovered by observation. Nothing is outside what we call science. From this perspective, the supernatural does not exist. Only interaction with rules of nature we do not yet understand. The planes will be presented here in a linear way, but it's important to understand that's not exactly how they function. The planes function much more like a color palette. Like colors, all of the principal parts of the realm occur on a spectrum, and when using them, one part bleeds and mixes with the other parts. The purpose of the planes is to make a final product, but that product is not a set of paints. It is to produce a work of art. Progression to a final stage is not a straight line. As we utilize knowledge and gain experience in each plane, we add a particular color, texture, and shape to the final product. We are a unique work of art in complete unity with the first. To begin with, the manifest realm is fundamentally made of information. That information is organized along a horizontal and vertical axis. To help understand this, think of a grid or spreadsheet. On this grid, there are rows going across labeled 0 at the top and going down to 10 at the bottom. These rows are the horizontal axis, where each number represents the number of perspectives those on that plane can perceive. The perspectives are cumulative, meaning they add one onto another in a sequence. For instance, the number 2 plane perceives only height and width. Plane 3 adds depth, and so on. The effect of this is that at lower dimensions, say 2 and 3, have less shared reality because they can only perceive things in a limited way. At the higher final dimensions, 8 and 9, many more dimensions can be viewed, and all reality becomes shared as one. In addition, each row or horizontal plane has a division called vertical plane. Those on a plane share the number of perspectives, but have another difference that makes them non-compatible. For instance, in our horizontal axis, we experience matter as most solid and real. Spiritual beings, i.e., ghosts or deceased loved ones, exist in a state of energy that is not matter as we experience it, and are considered less substantial, often perceived as not existing. From our point of view, material and energy planes are parallel vertical dimensions of our horizontal plane. To help make more sense of this, we will share brief descriptions of the properties of each plane. The supreme is the infinite zero, the true starting point. Out of the supreme came the first. At this point, there was only one perspective, that of the first, a one-dimensional awareness. The first was not truly infinite, and so experienced the initial constrained possibilities of what the manifest realm could be. This is the initial plane of the first. The first produced a pattern of waves. Waves experience two-dimensional awareness of height and width. The change from one perspective to two is a change in horizontal plane. In the conscious universe, this two-dimensional plane is first birth in the hells. The first vertical division was established between harmony and disharmony. In this second dimension, first birth is a place of harmony and unity with the first. In the hells, an awareness has a wave structure. Waves flow over one another but provide no reflection as would interaction with a solid. Each awareness then lives in its own perception of reality. The ways awarenesses can be in disharmony is infinite and individual. This is why the word hells is plural. In the story of the conscious universe, awarenesses who gained wisdom found themselves in wonder. Wonder is a name given to the plane of the third dimension. Here, depth was added, generating particles and three-dimensional space. In this horizontal plane, we find the first division between the planes of energy and matter. In the second and third dimensions, time is not perceived, even if it affects them. There is only the present without connection to the past or future. Once a change occurs, there is only the present reality. For awarenesses fixed in the present, there is always a state of wonderment. So this plane is also called wonder. From there, the fourth dimension of time was given. On this plane, stars and celestial bodies began to experience time. For celestial bodies, time is not flat like we experience it. Time, structure, and speed are all interdependent parts of the fourth dimensional experience. Each body has its own rate of time and is a factor when relating to one another. The fourth dimension continues the vertical planes of energy and matter and adds to it structure. Awarenesses then begin to share a sense of place. The fifth dimensional plane is the introduction of life. In dimensions 2 through 4, separateness is not fully realized. Only when life begins is there an inner and outer awareness. There begins a perception of independence from the outside world, or the self in relation to the world. Single focused awareness is driven by survival within the environment more than anything else. When biological life is introduced, awareness loses connectivity and gains greater short-sighted clarity. This separation produces the initial experience of individuality as we know it. All life has this awareness. From the most basic microbes to complex animal behavior, there is the possession of individual single outer awareness. On the fifth dimensional plane, there is an explosion of forms. All entities share a sense of place, time, and being material. Although perception of reality is not necessarily shared, there are hard set limits on what can be understood and responded to. A tree may know where the light and good soil is, but will not do a math problem. Dogs may communicate with us, but will never write a poem. Fifth dimensional beings can have the same physical interaction, but have very different meanings and memories of what was experienced. Humans have also kept this ability. In the energy realms, physics seems to operate in what can be described as soft. Beings have a way of perceiving the world heavily influenced by instinct and conditioning. The story of that instinct and conditioning makes the world present itself in a particular way that conforms to what we desire. We can say that we do not observe the world as it is, but as we are. It functions as if our intention can substantially alter reality and move to accommodate what we want. Because of this, fifth dimensional beings have a harder time discerning fantasy from reality. They lack the capacity for critical thought. To illustrate, what we may experience as addiction is our animal self seeking a thing with persistence. It is acting according to a perception of its life and body that seems correct and essential to self. It is our fifth dimensional perspective that we have yet to master. To enter the sixth perspective is to have self-awareness. It is the ability to perceive both the inside and outside and to think about our thinking. Having gained a perspective of separation, we can then look back at our source of self, the Supreme. Perceiving within activates an inner search of exploration and curiosity. This extraordinary ability brings with it the potential for exponential wisdom growth. This characteristic is what makes the Homo genus different from other life forms. The introduction to Zozvrm will cover how humanity came to be in another session. The vertical division of the sixth dimension are extensive. It is helpful to remember that just like our material existence, all the planes are operating together as one. Rocks, plants, animals, stars, and people are all present. So it is with the energy planes. The planes run on a spectrum from the most material where we are to less and less material energy planes. The life we experience is the most material existence in the vertical plane. The physicality of the plane makes decisions harder. We must exert much more intention than on other planes. At the same time, that's the benefit. The hardness is preparatory to being able to handle greater ability. When we die, we most often move to an energy plane that acts as an expanse of water between islands of material existence. We can move through that energy and be reborn or move deeper into the energy planes. More will be said in the Many Lives section. Even with sixth-dimensional perception, the energy planes have similar challenges as described in the fifth dimension. So many of us live in different perceived realities while sharing space on the earth. Our ability to think about our thinking is the key to our self-awareness and progression into the next dimension. The science leading to the seventh dimension is that of the mind and awareness. Where the modern world is marked by self-awareness, what comes next is to live life in the fabric of oneness, to embody our interconnectedness. It is the pursuit that every religious practice began as. The way forward seems to be connected to what was anciently called awakening. What we are awakening to is a seventh dimension of perception. When we grow into this ability, we will see that the mind and its operation is much more than we suspected it to be. A new humanity will emerge. In the seventh dimension, the wall between energy realms and us begin to break. We will see that it was always only one thing. A new science will be discovered that will help us navigate into this brave new reality. How far away this is up to us. As planes are a matter of perception, the material and energy planes shrink until we perceive one reality. What comes after that is something like a new explosion of possibility. Unlike previous planes where we describe the addition of a single dimension of perspective, in the eighth plane there is an explosion of dimensional perspectives. It is the result of exponential growth in awareness. To fully wrap our minds around it is unreasonable. What we can perceive is what is reflected back to us in our current dimension. Eighth dimensional beings look like an expansive awareness that is attached to energy matter. Additional perceptions that open up a whole new spectrum of planes that we cannot even guess at currently. Extreme variations in ways of being become available. Time and space do not function in ways recognizable to us. Human interaction with such beings happens unknowingly all the time. In the same way, microbes interact with us by living in our gut. At the same time, we are also them, just as cells are in a body. What comes next is something even more removed from our experience. Ninth dimension looks like an expansive awareness that is attached to energy. A further expansion of awareness that is both more individual and more universal. Awareness is not tied to any kind of thing, but flows across the entirety of the manifest realm. There is a growing independence from the manifest realm. All experience of reality condense into a single truth. Just when there seems no further to go, there is unity with the first, a blossoming of completeness at the end of the ninth dimension, a state between supreme and the manifest realm. What may look to us like the end of growth is a state of continuous expansion and contraction. The body is one, in a fountain of wisdom without end. Last is a 10th plane. It is the time of returning, when the manifest realm completes the purposes set out by the first. A transcendental object at the end of time. The number 10 being symbolically 1, the first, and 0, the infinite supreme, side by side, united into a single state. As we look over the planes of existence, we observe important patterns. One is that the less perspectives we have, the further apart our realities seem to be. As the planes progress in perspectives, they grow closer together. As awarenesses grow in maturity, we gain perspectives and thus gain the ability to handle the complexities that come with it. We effectively begin to integrate more aspects of our realm into one reality. At the human stage, the energy and material sides become aware of one another. Only each realm considers theirs to be the most real and the others not real. We are in Plato's cave, fully convinced of our own rightness. Another observation is that every step leads to unity. Each life adds to the magnificent being that makes us individuals. Just as our life on earth has many ups and downs that make us who we are, our progression to unity is that experience magnified 1,000-fold. Our purpose here is to make the most of the life we have, to work towards unity, beginning within ourselves and then with humanity and the earth. Many lives. An understanding of many lives begins with observations of our own life. All of us were once 2 years old, though most of us do not remember being 2. Our 2-year-old self had a life, a body, a mind very different from what we are today. In a sense, we could say that sometime along the way, our 2-year-old self died. The full memories of that time period are no longer available to us, and only the essence of our 2-year-old self remains. This process happens throughout our lives as we experience changes in deeply meaningful ways. For some, it's more gradual than others who may experience radical changes in their lives. Many of us feel a distance from the old us who lived a different life. We lose the ability to relate to our 2-year-old self in large part because our current mind and body are substantially different. We can simply no longer relate to old us and therefore disconnect from those memories. This is the same physical function that happens around our birth. We lose touch with our pre-birth selves. From this, we can begin to understand our many lives. From the first moments we were in the manifest realm, our awareness existed as an energy. That energy changes with experience. Birth, a change from a less material to a more material state, is a radical change that disrupts our way of embodying experience. In doing so, we can lose connection with our old selves. Death is a similar event. At death, we become embodied in an energy plane. We carry through death all of the traits, memories, relationships, and knowledge we acquired in this life. The same process of an ever-changing us continues in the energy planes. Our energy body is also temporary, and we will again need to proceed onward through birth or death, to either another energy plane or to a material plane. How we perceive the energy planes we find ourselves in depends on many factors, such as how well were we able to function in harmony with Om, how strong is our story, and how attached to the material plane are we. Taken together, the characteristics we bring with us from this life and those we generate there determine what plane we are compatible with. When the kairos are right, and we transition once again, we always find ourselves in a state we are compatible with. Therefore, the cycle continues until we at last find ourselves in unity with the first. There is no unchanging self that continues from life to life. Each life is a unique cosmic event. In this way, this life as ourselves is the only one we have. The absolute value of our life should not be taken lightly, but celebrated for the moment of joy it is. Many sages who had this knowledge open to them taught it using different variations. This resulted in one of the main differences between Eastern and Western spiritual traditions, the perception of a single life versus many. For some, the knowledge of a single life and then judgment was most necessary. The value and possibility contained within a single human life was best viewed from this point of view. For others, the cyclical nature of life was most relevant. With the knowledge of many lives, life and death are steps in a larger progression when none are lost. Neither is completely false, only adapted to the needs of the people at the time. Human life. Human life is a magnificent gift. We will do well to understand and remember the precious nature of human life and act with joy accordingly. Human beings have a beautiful opportunity to guide our mind and body to speak and act and to form relationships. The potential of one life is of infinite worth. No matter where we start, we have the ability to make deep and lasting progress on our journey home to unity with the First and Supreme. Our life is measured by the strength of our wisdom and the quality of our relationships. The highest aim of human life is to experience a taste of unity with the First. We do this by being of service to humanity and the earth. At the core of service is our own development. We gain self-mastery and harmony with Om so we can see deeper into reality. That is, to see and experience with greater clarity the works of the First. As we do so, we can provide words and actions beneficial to all beings. Where we are responsible not just for humans, but for everything the First has entrusted to us, including plants, animals, and mineral. This trust is not to just maintain the status quo. It includes actively shaping our environment, that every being may pursue transcendence and live up to the measure of our potential. As we live up to our potential, we grow in awareness and love. The result of these individual efforts is our collective progress to the next stage of evolution. Together, we learn to live in harmony with people and nature in such a way as to fulfill our potential. As we do this, together, we gradually reshape our communities, societies, and the world. When we change ourselves and increase our wisdom, our values will change to be more in keeping with superpersonal truth. We will value people, relationships, and feelings in balance with impersonal material progress. We will begin to revere and follow leaders who have greater superpersonal truth and who see deeper into reality. As generation after generation pursue supreme awareness, the body and environment will adapt and heal us, leading us to civilizations yet unimagined. The very continuation of our species may depend on how closely we adhere to superpersonal truth. How we mature individually and collectively is discussed in the other sections of the introduction to Zozvrm. We are all by nature supreme, the First and Omni-Self. Our unity of being becomes more clear as we grow in wisdom. The manifest realm itself is the very word and body of the First. Within this realm, the earth is our nursing mother. All our mortal experience comes from our relationship to the earth. She sings the song of Om ceaselessly in our ears. She contains all the lessons we need for ultimate unity, if we but listen and obey. Our bodies themselves are but pieces of the earth we borrow for a short time. They come from the womb of her soil and water, and will return there soon enough. We will do well to understand and remember the precious nature of human life and act with joy accordingly. Truly, human life is a magnificent gift. Superpersonal truth. The superpersonal truth is that we are a supreme self. We are, each of us, supreme. Like a wanderer separated from our home, we long to be reunited with our source. Like a magnet, we feel a pull towards the inexpressible infinite. This piece of the Supreme within us sits at the core of our being and is the essence of our true selves. The common trait of all beings is to seek happiness. The highest form of happiness is only found in our Supreme Self. The magnitude of this divinity cannot be adequately expressed. It may only be experienced. Supreme self-awareness extends beyond energy, matter, and human thought. We existed as a part of the Supreme before this realm was created, and will return to it after this realm ceases to exist. Realizing our Supreme Self is a transcendent experience. Every man, woman, and child you will ever meet, every stranger on another continent, and every person who has ever lived is deeply divine, just as we are. Each provides a glimpse into the Supreme and reflection of ourselves. Every glimpse and reflection brings with it a necessary lesson for our growth. Is it any wonder that all the wise teach us to treat others as we would treat ourselves? Awareness of personal divinity accelerates our need for personal growth. It is often expressed as a drive to be a person who can one day be in the presence of the highest divinity. The quest for divine union is such a powerful force that superpersonal truth is the primary driver of human history. Sages, prophets, holy men and women, philosophers, and enlightened beings have provided paths towards superpersonal realization. They have given mankind stories, precepts, and rules to live by according to their time and place. These teachings have been invaluable to human growth. All the books and teachings of the wise are maps to the transformation of the Supreme Self. The words and outer appearances may be different, but the inner territory is the same for all of us. To fully understand what they meant, we must travel our own journey and experience the territory for ourselves. The First created this realm in order for us to grow into the fullest depth of our infinite possibility. The most important part of existence is to seek wisdom that expands our supreme selves and creates unity. By experiencing different lives, we gain perspectives and generate wisdom. Each plane of existence has its own set of tools and lessons, such as through human embodiment, we gain a capacity for creation. Of all life on earth, we are the most creative. Other planes and bodies come with their own benefits and challenges. Over time, the wisdom we acquire layers together and allows us to better encompass love and awareness. As we beautify our existence, our body of wisdom is refined, and our use of matter and energy becomes more complete. We generate a more complete understanding of reality. Every life is of momentous importance. Our joy is to engage in the process that is in the present moment, to uncover the fulfillment that is available in the here and now, to realize by direct perception the superpersonal truth that we are a supreme self, that we, each of us, is supreme, and to be at one with our supreme selves.